We're going to be talking about the truth behind Jonathan Drouin playing 0 seconds of ice time in the Habs' last game for disciplinary reasons. We'll be getting into that, plus Lane Hutson breaking even more records, and finally a Habs Tankathon update, so you won't want to miss anything on this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's news edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier. And a quick reminder before we get into the video to hit that subscribe button. We're approaching 4,400 subs, almost at 4,500, almost at 5K. So if you enjoy the content, you want to see more of this, hit that button. We won't let you down. Jesse, first thing today, we're going to talk a bit about last night. We're going to talk about the real reason Jonathan Drouin was benched, some of the truth behind why he was benched, and we had some interesting comments after the game. Of course, we heard that Drouin was 2 minutes late for a team meeting on Friday morning, but he fully accepted the consequences. Martin St. Louis said he was great on the bench, handled the whole situation as well as could be expected. The entire thing is over as far as he's concerned. Drouin said whether it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you can't be late to a meeting. It's a rule, and he broke it. He said he didn't hear his alarm. Jesse, I'm just going to get your opinion right off the bat on this. Do you think this suspension, sort of like pseudo suspension where he doesn't play a second of ice time while fully dressed, was a bit too far, or do you think it was reasonable from Coach Marty?
Calculated, firm, and fair, in the words of Coach Marty, is, obviously not an easy situation. It's not something that he wants to do, but you definitely need to set, some standards, some a little bit of structure just in this team. So it is really hard, though, that just due to the whole number situation that Jonathan Drouin did need to serve this one game suspension on the bench. You got to feel like that's the absolute worst. Like, you're playing hockey your whole life. You're there watching you play in front of all your teammates. There's that added embarrassment. Every muscle in your body is just telling you to jump over those boards and just go play that game that you love. So, I mean, you got to feel bad for him on one hand. At the same time, you really can't do this when you're a professional, and coincidentally, this was the game where the Habs had the least amount of turnovers ever. So
funny.
I'm just joking, but it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me. I didn't check that. I was like, oh, really? Like, the fact that I even believed that was, anyway, that's its own story. But no, let's get into, I think you made a good point there. As a professional, you can't really do this. And I think that transitions into sort of the topic of, why was this done? What's the real reason St. Louis said, hey, you're 2 minutes late, you're getting benched? No matter how harsh it seems. Now, again, if Cayden Guhle was playing last night, this wouldn't happen. Drouin would have been scratched. He wouldn't have been, humiliated by not jumping over the boards. But Coach Marty clearly has a team culture in mind. And you look back to some clips earlier the year, there was one where Nick Suzuki was hounding St. Louis saying, Cole's late, Caufield's late. Cole was just barely made it on time. So that adds some context to that. Clearly, this has been a rule the whole year, looking back on those clips. It's something that Coach St. Louis must hold dear to his heart. And one thing, Jesse, I think, the reason he was so aggressive and so, steadfast in his disciplinary approach was that you have to keep this team culture all together. You let one guy get away with something, no matter if it's 2 minutes. If the rule is you can't be late, you can't be late no matter what. As when I said, it doesn't matter if it's 2, 10, or 20. And if you let one slide, you see some Montreal media, some fans saying, oh, Coach Marty, you're going to scratch him for that. If you cave to any of the pressure, one guy gets away with it, that can spiral out of control. So I think the real reason he decided to, humiliate Drouin, in the public like that is, as much as it sucks to be Drouin, it really sends a message to the other players. And I personally think it'll just reinforce the great team culture that Montreal already has.
No, it's so true. And it's not like Drouin hasn't been given the benefit of the doubt. Even though he had a less than spectacular first half of the season, you saw that he was still kind of keeping his spot on that second line. It's not like he hasn't been given his opportunities. I think Martin St. Louis has been more than fair with him so far this year. But I think that this decision, although, definitely isn't the funnest for Jonathan Drouin, just shows what good hands the Montreal Canadiens are in with Martin St. Louis.
I completely agree. Brutal punishment for Jonathan Drouin, but looks like they're moving forward from it. St. Louis said that the two have a very good relationship, so I think it's time to finally just move on. Topic number 2 today, Jesse. We got a lot of Lane Hutson things. He scores the OT winner to win the conference, and he's breaking records. Just last night, Lane Hutson playing in the Hockey East Championship against Merrimack University. He goes at Merrimack College University, one of the Merrimack, and Lane Hutson From the point, fires a hard wrister, squeaks through the whole crowd. The overtime winner, not even 2 minutes into overtime, to win the Hockey East Conference as he continues his tear. And that goal tied him with Brian Leetch for the most points in NCAA history for a rookie defenseman, also under 19 defenseman. I guess those kind of go hand in hand. But Lane did it in one less game. And Jesse, that's not all. Not only did Lane Hutson tie Brian Leetch's rookie defenseman scoring record in the NCAA in one less game, the leading scorer this year in the NCAA is Adam Fantilli at 60-something points. The year Brian Leetch originally set that record of 47 points, the leading scorer in the NCAA had 116. So relatively, Lane's record is super impressive. What are your thoughts on just his continued ability to just never seem to slow down and consistently produce at the highest level?
He's just an amazing player. And what I take from this championship game, him scoring the overtime winning goal, on the fact that he also scored previously in that game, just tells me that Lane Hutson is a clutch player.
True.
So I'm just so excited for this. You know, I think that he has all the talent in the world, and it's about time that we really start just really giving him the credit that he really deserves.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, clutch. And I think something that goes hand in hand with clutch is being calm under pressure. And you see a lot of guys when they get to the NHL, maybe the nerves hit. They don't do the same things they used to do. They're not as confident in themselves anymore. But Lane doesn't seem to do that. Lane isn't someone who's going to have the best defense, and he's not going to blow you away with his speed, but his pure skill on his skates and his hockey sense, especially in the offensive zone, create these chances. And even in these clutch situations, like you said, he's calm under pressure, and he makes the plays that are needed. So you got to think that will be an incredible skill to have translate to the NHL, right?
Oh, it's going to be amazing. You know, I've heard so many people say, you know, that as soon as he joins the Habs, that he's going to be their best offensive defenseman just in so many years. So it'll be really interesting to see his development next year. I think he's just going to be breaking records with the same team next year, but just to see him perform at that highest level when it's really needed the most, I think is just saying so much.
Yeah, I think it'll be very cool to see him next year. It'll be kind of cool to see in a couple years him alongside Mike Matheson, two solid skaters, great on their edges, offensive defensemen. That'll be super cool, but I'm sure Lane will spend at least one more year in college, but I cannot wait to see what's in store for him. Final thing today, Jesse, we got a bit of a Tankathon update. Every now and then we got to do one of these, right, to show where the Habs are slipping to in the standings, and we have another pretty good one today. Let's take a look at the Tankathon, and we can see that Montreal has now solidified their spot in 5th last. You can see Philadelphia just ahead of them. I think Philly has a game in hand, and Anaheim just behind them, who also have a game in hand. So Montreal right now is sitting there at 60 points. But Jesse, the big thing that I'm thinking here is I don't know, especially after Chicago traded Kane, I don't see Chicago, San Jose, or Columbus catching up to Montreal in the standings. But what I can see is a young Anaheim team with some things to prove the rest of the way. I can see them putting together some wins as Montreal loses down the stretch with their AHL roster. And if Montreal can slip into that top 4 spot, I believe that guarantees them an 80% chance at a top 5 pick. At this point, do you just want them to slip behind Anaheim, slip as low as they can go to get as good a draft pick as possible? Because these games right now, at least as of late, have been a bit rough.
Well, I think it's just going to happen kind of organically with, like you said, Josh, it's kind of having a lot of players from the AHL playing with us, even though they've been playing quite valiantly, and a lot of them, making quite a bid for next year. But yeah, we're going to have a little bit of a tough schedule, as we talked about on the pod. Coming up, that combined with just all the injuries that we're having right now. And then add on top of that, the fatigue that we're having right now, just from asking so much of our young players, especially our young decor, over the course of such a long season. So, I think that, there's a really good chance that we do fall into that 4th spot. And then I think with the luck of the draw, that my take of us getting that top 3 pick will come true.
I hope so too. And a lot of people are saying, like, even if Montreal lands 4, who do you take? And I think the consensus now is no matter where Montreal lands in the top 5, which it seems like they will be in the top 5, at least top 6, if Michkov is available, I think a lot of people want him. Maybe someone like Leo Carlsson as well. I know we've spoken a bit about Michkov. I'm starting to come around a bit more on Michkov, of course, as a Minnesota Wild fan. Banking on someone in the KHL coming over has seemed to pay off for them. So why not for Montreal, eh?
It's true. My question to you, Josh, is would you take Michkov over somebody possibly like Leo Carlson, but knowing that you're going to have to wait possibly 2 years before Michkov comes to your team?
I personally would take Michkov over Carlson, especially because I see Montreal's window, especially as the Caufield extension's coming up. You got Slafkovsky and Dach, who are very young on contracts, and they'll be on the team for a long time in the future. I think, like, as someone put it online, I saw, like, imagine these guys all develop, Slafkovsky, of course, too. These guys all come up, and they're in their mid-20s now, like, they're 25 years old, hitting their primes, and you just bring over someone that might be like Kaprizov, right, or like Kuzmenko, something like that. You just add them to the team. That's already amazing. I'm more sold on Michkov than Leo Carlson, of course, if they get number 1 or 2, Bedard, Fantilli, but I think you got to take him.
It's an interesting take. I like it because you got to feel when Michkov is coming over at that time that he's just going to be ready to rip it up. Like, you know, he's going to have played in the KHL at a young age, but he's going to be getting tons of experience. Like, when he comes up, he's going to be a finely tuned scoring machine. And I see him getting upwards of possibly 40 to 50 just in his first year, because I really believe he is that type of talent. He's going to come in and tear it up. So, you know, it might be a really good fit with the Habs. I'd be interested to see. Of course, it depends on where we fall. But you got to think, a lot of people have been saying, like, Michkov might even compete with Connor Bedard at some point later on in terms of talent, knowing how talented Connor Bedard is. That is quite a bit, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think Michkov is really proving it right now.
I think so too. He has something like 20 points in 30 games as like an 18-year-old in the KHL. It's almost unprecedented. Not many people can do that. Super excited to see him, and if Montreal gets the chance, I think they should go for it. That'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us hit 5,000 subs before the end of the season. I know you guys can help us out. I'm Josh Goss for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.